But all the communication between the components happens only at 1858, but from PSM. If we were to take up any of the servers to be, or maybe any application to be rerouted to RDP or PuTTY, then from PSM to the target server, we still have the 3389 or maybe 22 kind of a thing open. Correct in case, if it is in database 1521 and some other port. So we need to give like PSM to target. So these are all the ports need to open and the vault to components or vault to target. In the target column we need to mention our components, servers, and we need to give that port 1858. And if you want to take RDP of the vault from any one of the components, server right. So, in case, if you are considering that server at a CPM, then we need to ask them to allow port 389 also. Like that. You need to prepare one table. And you give the table to that cloud team so they will allow those ports only. Okay. Thank you. So for whatever services we are using, we have to ask the network team to enable the port services for the specific port number. So you can use. So the cyber itself. You can have this shown, all the services in the cyber or SSH could be as an NPP, SNMP. I think it's going through 1858. Or if in the submodule this RDP connection with port number 25 and this connection database connection with 3386. So why did two component servers in here components are in the sense CPM? PVWA PSM. PSMP will be communicated on the port 1858. Okay. So if you want to connect to any target server, then the port number will be different. So those ports will be opened from the PSM server to target server. So in case, if your target is a Windows, then we require double thread for RDP. And in case if your target is Linux or Unix, then we require 22 port. In the same way for databases 1521. And for a directory is 389 or 636. Like that. We have multiple other ports. Okay. So we need to ask them to open these ports from our PSM server. So always that connectivity of the target server will happen from the PSM server only, not from the wall. Okay. So wall to components. We require this port number and PSM to target. We require different port numbers. So I will go through this part. So, while covering this PSM part, okay, so I will cover that port numbers also. Okay, in the same way. So if you want to manage a password management, we required a CPM to Windows. We need to allow port 139, 445 and a CPM to Linux 22. And CPM to directories again 389 or 636, etc. Again, databases, some other ports like this. So we need to prepare one table kind of thing for all these ports. And we need to submit this request to the cloud security team so that they can configure this as security groups and they will allow all the required ports. Yes. Okay. Thank you. So next, HSM hardware security module. So hardware security module is used to store the keys, digital keys. So always, CyberArk recommends us to store the server key on the HSM itself. Okay, so in our lab we stored our server key in the file system. So in case, by any chance, if any hacker hacked that wall server means got the RDP access to the wall server, then easily they can stop the server. Or they can easily modify or delete the keys for interrupting our business. So always, CyberArk recommends us to store the server key in HSM. So for storing server key in the HSM, we have two vendors, HSM vendors. So one is Cyber and the other one is Tails. Again, it depends upon the company they will go for. The HSM vendor. So, as I told you we shouldn't install any third-party application in the wall server, right? But except the HSM software, we shouldn't install any third-party applications into the wall. So for HSM software you can install in the wall whatever vendor we have chosen by the company. So those vendor software, HSM software, we can install in the wall and we can configure that HSM. Okay. So here, for example, you have chosen the Cyber software, so Cyber vendor will provide one HSM software. So we need to install that executable files in the wall server before installing the wall. Okay, so first we need to configure, install this Cyber software, and then we need to configure this Cyber software. So for configuring Cyber software, we need to allow some firewall rule. Means, here we need to allow 9004. So, as I told you yesterday, right? In case, if you want to open any port apart from 3389, we need to write a rule. Allow non-standard FW address equal to here for IP address of that HSM device and S and port number 9004. And here we are opening TCP protocol. So, in case, if you are opening both the TCP and UDP, then we need to write another line below. And the protocol you need to mention, UDP inbound and outbound. Okay. So for communicating a vault to the HSM, we required port 9004 should be opened from the vault to the HSM. So for that reason we have mentioned this rule in the dbpmn file. Allow non-standard FW address equal to IP address of the HSM device and port number. Here we have mentioned both the TCP inbound and outbound protocols. And protocol is TCP. Okay. And in the HSM section we have few parameters, so we need to mention these parameters also. Where is that fastwell file? And in case if that connection got interrupted, and what are the error codes? We need to get all those things we need to configure in the dbpmn file. So, in case, if you are integrating HSM with the Vault server, and definitely we need to take support from the vendor, either in Cypher or Tails, because we are not expert in the HSM, right? So definitely we need to take support from the vendor. And in that call we can do that screen sharing and we can configure the HSM. Okay. So, coming to CyberArk part, we can run that commands whatever requirements. If they ask us to open the firewall port from Vault to the CyberArk, then we can enable this rule in the dbp-aminf. But we don't know these commands, right? How to enroll the HSM and how to move the key from the file system to HSM. So all those things they will suggest with some commands and we need to run those commands. Okay. So initially that server key will be available in some part in the file system. Once you integrate that HSM, so server key will be available in the HSM. Okay. So, if you make any changes to the dbp-aminf file, we need to restart our Vault server. So do we need to change the dbp-am file? Like modification, like allowing any port or any service or specific IP from the firewall. So do we have to add the rules in a dbp-am file? Correct. So, apart from that, LDAP ports 389 or 636 or syslog ports 514. A few ports by default will be open, but in case if you open any other ports like 3389, 9004, you need to write this rule. Allow non-standard FW address equal to this rule. So what are the common rules we have to configure? For allowing a non-standard IP address based on the request from the client. For the basic common rules. Basic in the sense we will allow 3389 for taking the RTP of the Vault server and this HSM port. And in case if you are integrating NTP network time protocol, in that case also we need to allow 123 port number 123. So here can we allow a specific network with subnetworks for only a specific host. Only specific IP. Yeah, specific IP host. Only specific IP we can allow. Yeah. Thank you. So how much you will restrict access to the Vault, that much you will provide security to the Vault server. In case, if you want to allow more ports also, you can do that, more IPs also, you can do that. But what is the reason for allowing all those ports? So, in case, if you are integrating NTP, then we need to allow port 123. And if you are integrating HSM, then we need to allow 9004. And for taking the RTP of the Vault server, we need to allow 3389 port for a specific host. So, based on the requirement, we need to allow those ports. That's it. So post restarting Vault, you can see like a server key will be available in the HSM. Okay. So again, as I told you, in case, if you are integrating, if you are storing the key server key in the HSM device, definitely we required help from that specific vendor, either Tails or Zipper. Okay, we can't do on our own. So we can do related to CyberArk prospective. In case if they ask us to open port, we can open that port. And if they ask us to run commands related to CyberArk, we can run, but HSM related commands we are not aware. Even though, if you go through that documentation also, it will be recommended, like we required, that the vendor support for configuring HSM and moving the server key to the HSM.